The situation you have just seen might have been avoided if the jumper had followed proper procedures and taken immediate corrective action. Military free-fall operations are inherently dangerous. Emergencies can occur at any time in an operation, before or during takeoff, during flight, while in free fall, during canopy deployment, while under canopy, or while landing. For your safety and the safety of your fellow parachutists, you must be able to recognize and react to emergency situations. You must be thoroughly familiar with the location and use of emergency exits on any aircraft on which you will be flying. If you are unsure of where exits are or how to use them, ask your jump master to provide this information to you. On the C-130, the port and starboard rear doors and the forward port doors open by turning the handle, pulling the door in, and lifting up until it is locked in the upright position. Time permitting, secure the locking pin and check for clearance and the absence of any hazards. The emergency escape hatches located on the top of the fuselage are operated by turning the handle counterclockwise and pulling down, extending the rope or ladder to assist other personnel, and also checking for clearance and the absence of any hazards. The ramp is operated by engaging the ramp hydraulics and depressing the lower ramp button until the ramp is lowered enough for a safe exit. Some windows are marked for emergency exit only. These have a release lever which must be engaged. After the lever has been engaged, the window should be pushed outward. Be sure there are no hazards that would endanger exiting personnel. The type and location of emergency escape gear varies among aircraft, so be sure to check with your jump master. All jumpers should clearly understand what to do in the event of a crash landing. Crash landing situations may occur during takeoff, during flight, and ditching over water. A crash landing during takeoff will be signaled by continuous ringing of the alarm bell or by verbal warnings from the aircrew or jump master. You must remain seated. Secure your seat belt and brace for impact by keeping your feet firmly planted on the deck, placing your head between your legs, and interlocking your fingers at the base of your neck. Wait until the aircraft has come to a complete stop. Release your seat belt, and then exit the aircraft when instructed by the air crew or your jump master. Proceed 100 meters in the direction they indicate. All jumpers then assemble at a safe location for accountability. Be aware and watch for emergency vehicles approaching the area. If an aircraft is experiencing problems during flight below 1,000 feet AGL and must crash land, you will hear a signal of 6 short rings of the alarm bell, followed by 1 long ring or a verbal warning from the jump master or aircrew just prior to impact. You should remain seated, secure your seatbelt, and assume a crash landing position. Helmets should be kept on. Wait for the command to exit. Release your seatbelt and exit the aircraft as directed. After exiting from the aircraft, proceed 100 meters in the direction indicated by the jump master or aircrew and assemble at a safe location for accountability. If the aircraft in which you are flying must ditch over water, you will be alerted by 6 short rings of the alarm bell, followed by 1 long ring or a verbal warning from the jump master or the aircrew informing you that the aircraft is going to ditch over water. When the alarm sounds, remain seated until instructed by the jump master or aircrew to remove your parachute and equipment. You will be directed where to place all your gear. Return to your seat. Fasten your seatbelt and brace for impact by assuming the crash landing position. After the aircraft has hit the water, listen to the jump master or aircrew for aircraft egress instructions. Exit the aircraft as indicated by the jump master or the aircrew. Once outside the aircraft, lifeboats must be inflated, and you will board these boats at the direction of the jump master or aircrew. If it is necessary to bail out of an aircraft flying between 1,000 feet and 2,000 feet AGL, There will be a signal of 3 short rings of the alarm bell, or a verbal warning from the jump master or aircrew with a long continuous ringing of the alarm bell to signal bailout. The jump master will signal this by giving the attention all signal, followed by the bailout on reserve command, placing his clenched left fist over his reserve ripcord handle and thrusting it outward. Your attention and response to the jump master's commands are key to a safe emergency bailout situation. When this signal is given, you will respond to any further commands from the jump master. As you move to the rear of the aircraft, place your left hand over your reserve ripcord handle. When the jump master gives the go command, exit and clear the aircraft and deploy your reserve parachute immediately. Once on the ground, all jumpers assemble together for accountability, and the JM will contact the DZSO to inform him of the situation and the status of all jumpers. If it is necessary to make an emergency bailout above 2,000 feet AGL, this will be signaled by 3 short rings of the alarm bell or a verbal warning from the jump master or aircrew with a long continuous ringing of the alarm bell to signal bailout. Following this warning, the jump master will give the attention all signal, followed by the bailout on main command, placing his clenched right fist over his main ripcord handle and thrusting it outward, indicating exit and subsequent deployment of the main parachute. When this signal is given, respond to any further commands from the jump master, and as you move to the rear of the aircraft, place your right hand over the main ripcord handle. When the jump master gives the go command, exit, clear the aircraft, wait 5 seconds, and deploy your main parachute. Once on the ground, assemble together, and the jump master will contact the DZSO to inform him of the situation and the status of all jumpers. If your parachute deploys inside an aircraft, proper procedures must be followed to ensure the safety of all jumpers. If the aircraft's doors and/or ramp are closed, the first person that notices the deployment should shout, "Pilot, shoot!" and all other jumpers will repeat the warning. The jumpers closest to the deployed chute should attempt to contain it. Someone must ensure the jump master is aware so the door or ramp is not opened. Your main parachute will be cut away. You should move to the front of the aircraft, be seated, and maintain control of your deployed chute. And you will either don a spare rig and receive a complete JMPI, or land with the aircraft. If your parachute deploys inside an aircraft, and the aircraft's doors and/or ramp have been opened, the first person to notice the deployment should shout, "Pilot, shoot!" and try to contain the parachute. If the chute is contained, you should move to the front of the aircraft and be seated. Your main parachute will be cut away, and you will either don a spare rig and receive a complete JMPI, or land with the aircraft. If your canopy or pilot chute is pulled outside the aircraft, exit immediately. All other jumpers should move out of the way so as not to impede you from exiting. If your altimeter fails prior to exiting the aircraft, you should inform the jump master immediately so your altimeter can be exchanged with the onboard spare from the JM bag. Then, receive a JMPI of the new altimeter from the jump master. If no spare altimeters are available, you will be moved forward in the aircraft, seated, and land with the aircraft. Many emergency situations can occur during free fall. If you collide with other jumpers as you exit an aircraft, you should arch, gently push off, regain stability, check your altimeter, check your ripcords, and continue the jump as planned. There are several types of instability during free fall. If you are spinning, you should arch, check your hands and feet, counter the spin by turning in the opposite direction, and always maintain altitude awareness. If you are tumbling, you should keep your head up, check your hands and feet, arch, and maintain altitude awareness. If you're on your back, you should arch, reach across your body with one arm, roll out of bed, and maintain altitude awareness. If you enter clouds or experience a loss of visual reference, you should stop all movement, maintain altitude awareness, and watch for other jumpers. Once you regain visual reference or pass through the clouds, be prepared to conduct evasive maneuvers if another jumper is below you. At the prescribed altitude, pull your main ripcord even if you have not yet passed through the clouds or regained your visual reference. If your main parachute opens before the prescribed opening altitude, conduct post-opening procedures. Do a controllability check. Then, continue to fly the canopy toward the intended landing area. If your reserve parachute opens inadvertently, check the risers to ensure that it is the reserve chute and conduct post-opening procedures. If your automatic ripcord release, ARR, is mounted on the main, pull the cutaway handle, then do a controllability check. If the ARR is mounted on the reserve, you do not need to cut away the main parachute. Continue to fly the canopy toward the intended landing area. If you lose your goggles in free fall, maintain your arch, reach up with both hands, keep your elbows high, and replace your goggles. If your goggles will not remain in place or they separate from you, relax and squint your eyes. Among the most important maneuvers in freefall is collision avoidance. If you think a collision with another jumper may occur, use turns and gliding techniques to avoid the other jumper or jumpers. Never continue to free fall over another jumper's back. There are 5 important maneuvers to avoid collisions. First is the forward glide. To perform this maneuver, check your altimeter, fully extend your legs, and pull your hands back toward your shoulders, keeping your elbows up and next to your body. Return to a neutral position to halt the forward glide. Then, check your altimeter. To perform a side slide, check your altimeter. Look in the direction you intend to slide. Bring that hand in toward your shoulder and lower your elbow and your knee on the same side. Simultaneously, extend the opposite arm and leg out. Return to a neutral position to halt the side slide and check your altimeter. To perform a left turn, check your altimeter, look left, and from the neutral position, dip your left shoulder, keeping your arm in the same position and raising your right shoulder, again keeping the arm in the same position. The steeper you dip your shoulder, the faster your turn will be. Return to a neutral position to halt the turn. Then check your altimeter. To perform a right turn, check your altimeter, look right, and from the neutral position, dip your right shoulder, keeping your arm in the same position and raising your left shoulder, keeping the arm in the same position. The steeper you dip your shoulder, the faster your turn will be. Return to a neutral position to halt the turn, then check your altimeter. If any turn goes further than desired, counter with an opposite turn. To perform a backward glide, check your altimeter, look to the rear. Extend your arms forward, bending your legs at the knees. Pull your feet up toward your buttocks while maintaining a good arch. The further out you extend your hands, the faster you will move to the rear. Return to a neutral position to halt the backward glide. Then check your altimeter. A backward glide is the least preferred technique for avoiding collisions. If you lose your altimeter or your altimeter fails, observe other jumpers and pull when they do. If you're unable to observe other jumpers, clear your airspace, wave off and deploy your main parachute immediately. Fly the canopy to the intended drop zone. Immediately report the equipment loss or failure to the DZSO. Day and night procedures for a lost or failed altimeter are the same. Activation of your main or reserve parachute above the prescribed opening altitude may cause a fatal or serious injury to yourself or to other jumpers in freefall. Give a good wave-off signal to let other jumpers know you're going to deploy your parachute. Many emergencies can occur during canopy deployment. A total malfunction occurs when the canopy remains in the container assembly after the ripcord has been pulled. Should this happen, do the following. Check over your shoulder again. If the canopy still does not deploy, throw away the main ripcord handle. Look for and identify the red cutaway handle located on the right main lift web chest high inboard. Grab the red cutaway handle with your right hand. Look for and identify the reserve ripcord handle located on the left main lift web, chest high, inboard. Grab the reserve ripcord handle with your left hand. Arch. Then pull the red cutaway handle to full arms extension. Throw away the red cutaway handle and pull the reserve ripcord handle to full arms extension. Throw away the reserve ripcord handle and then check to ensure that your reserve pilot chute has deployed. Remember that all cutaways should be initiated by 2,000 feet AGL. Once you initiate the cutaway sequence, continue it until completion. Attempt to clear malfunctions only twice. If you encounter a floating ripcord, locate the ripcord housing cable with the right hand, trace along the housing towards the ripcord pocket. Then, locate the ripcord cable that should protrude from the housing and pull this cable. If this is unsuccessful, perform cutaway procedures. If you encounter a hard ripcord pull, reach across with your left hand and assist your right hand in a punching motion. If this is unsuccessful, perform cutaway procedures. If you experience a pack closure with no pilot chute deployment, immediately check over your shoulder again. If this is unsuccessful, perform cutaway procedures. A partial malfunction occurs when the container assembly opens, but the canopy does not fully or properly deploy. In the case of a pilot chute hesitation, look over your right shoulder to disrupt the vacuum. Once the vacuum is broken, the pilot chute should deploy. If this is unsuccessful, perform cutaway procedures. A horseshoe malfunction occurs when any portion of the parachute is caught on a jumper or his equipment and is extremely dangerous. Do not attempt to correct this malfunction. Perform cutaway procedures immediately. If your main and reserve parachutes deploy simultaneously, attempt to achieve canopy separation and then activate the cutaway handle. Do a controllability check and then continue to fly the canopy for a landing on the intended drop zone. Another type of emergency during canopy deployment occurs when a jumper's main parachute deploys and his reserve parachute opens partially but does not fully inflate. If this happens to you, slow the main parachute to prevent the reserve canopy from fully inflating. Try to pull in the reserve canopy and/or deployment bag and hold them between your legs. Be prepared to cut away the main parachute if your reserve parachute inflates. Now let's turn our attention to emergencies under canopy. After you have successfully deployed your parachute, you must conduct post-opening procedures. Use the rear risers to avoid other jumpers as required. Orient yourself to the drop zone. Perform a controllability check and maintain altitude awareness. To perform a controllability check, release the brakes and then look left and turn left 90 degrees. Next, look right and turn right 90 degrees. Then determine your stall point. If the canopy requires more than 50% opposite toggle to counter a turn, or if the canopy stalls prior to 50% brakes, it is deemed uncontrollable. If the canopy is uncontrollable, perform cutaway procedures. Cutaway procedures are the same no matter what type of malfunction occurs. If your canopy stays inside its bag after deployment, you have a bag lock. If this happens, grasp the risers and pull down twice. If this is not successful, perform cutaway procedures. If you experience a hung slider, grasp the steering toggles and pull them down to the full brake position for 3 to 4 seconds. Then, let up to the full flight position. If the problem is not corrected, pull the toggles to the full braking position one more time. If the slider does not deploy successfully after 2 attempts, perform a controllability check. If the canopy is uncontrollable, perform cutaway procedures. If your parachute lines are knotted, perform a controllability check. If your parachute is uncontrollable, perform cutaway procedures. If you have broken suspension lines, perform a controllability check. If your parachute is uncontrollable, perform cutaway procedures. If your parachute has holes or tears, perform a controllability check. If your parachute is uncontrollable, perform cutaway procedures. If you can see through your canopy or the top skin is torn, cut away. If you have broken control lines, release the brakes and steer with the good toggle and the rear riser on the side with the broken control line. Determine the stall point at a safe altitude using the rear risers only. Remember that overuse of risers will fatigue your arms. Flare the parachute for landing with both rear risers. In the event of a pilot chute over the nose, grasp the toggles and pull them down to the full brake position for 3 to 4 seconds. Then let up to the full flight position. If the problem does not clear, make one more attempt. If the pilot chute is still over the nose, perform a controllability check. Fly the canopy conservatively and try to limit your maneuvers. If your parachute is uncontrollable, perform cutaway procedures. In the event of closed end cells, bring both toggles to the full brake position for 3 to 4 seconds and let the toggles up slowly. This process may be repeated a maximum of 2 times. If this is unsuccessful, perform a controllability check. If your parachute is uncontrollable, perform cutaway procedures. If one control line releases on opening, immediately release the other control line and perform a controllability check. In the event of line twists, reach up and separate your risers. Do not release your brakes until the line twists are clear. Use a kicking motion to untwist suspension lines. Maintain altitude awareness, and if you are unable to clear the twists, your decision to cut away must be made by 2,000 feet AGL. Alertness on your part can help avoid canopy entanglements. Always attempt to steer clear of another jumper by turning to avoid the other jumper. If a collision is imminent, assume the modified spread eagle position by placing your arm across your chest, attempting to cover your reserve ripcord and cutaway handle. If line entanglement occurs, attempt to free yourself. Communication between jumpers and altitude awareness are critical to a successful disentanglement. If you become entangled with another parachutist at an altitude above 2,000 feet AGL, the higher parachutist should attempt to clear the lower parachutist's canopy. If the canopy is cleared, it should re-inflate within 150 to 200 feet. The lower parachutist should check his altitude. If the canopy cannot be cleared, perform cutaway procedures above 2,000 feet AGL. If you become entangled with another parachutist at an altitude between 1,000 feet and 2,000 feet AGL, the lower jumper has 2 options: perform cutaway procedures or land with the higher parachutist. If the lower parachutist does not cut away, he should jettison his equipment, and the higher parachutist should make every effort to control the lower jumper's canopy. The higher parachutist flies his final approach and lands with half brakes. Both parachutists should be prepared to do a PLF. If you become entangled with another parachutist at an altitude below 1,000 feet AGL, the higher parachutist should make every effort to control the lower parachutist's canopy. The lower parachutist should jettison his equipment, and the higher parachutist flies his final approach and lands with half brakes. Both parachutists should be prepared to do a PLF. If you become entangled with another parachutist and neither of you has a good canopy, the higher parachutist has cutaway priority. After getting clear of the entangled lines, The higher parachutist performs cutaway procedures. The lower parachutist should cut away after the higher parachutist. Remember that the higher parachutist may become fatally engulfed in the canopy if the lower parachutist performs a cutaway first. If you cannot clear the entanglement and impact with the ground is imminent, both jumpers should deploy their reserve parachutes in an attempt to slow the descent. If only one reserve parachute deploys, the parachutist with the good canopy must bring the other parachutist to the ground. If both reserves deploy, both parachutists should cut away from the entanglement. Several types of emergencies may occur during landing. One of these emergencies can be caused by high winds. To prevent being dragged when you contact the ground, pull one toggle in as far as possible and release the other completely. Pivot in the direction of the pulled toggle while continuing to pull the control line hand over hand until the canopy collapses. To recover from being dragged, release one toggle completely and pull the other control line hand over hand until the canopy collapses. Stay alert under canopy for signs of swirling or erratic wind conditions. Avoid dust devils at all cost by maneuvering away under canopy. If you cannot avoid dust devils, go to 50% brakes and prepare to do a PLF. If you have just landed and are being overtaken by a dust devil, lie down on top of your canopy and gather it underneath you. If you are unable to control your canopy, disconnect your RSL and cut away. If you have to land off the drop zone, first identify a landing area with enough altitude to permit a safe into-the-wind landing. After you have landed, contact the DZSO or team if possible and report your status and general location. Then, gather your equipment and move in the direction of the DZ or assembly point. Walk on the high ground and keep your radio on if available, monitoring for any additional instructions from the DZSO. If you're approaching an obstacle, such as a building, vehicle, or tree, attempt to steer clear of it. If you're unable to avoid it, make contact with the obstacle with both feet and perform a PLF. If you land on a road, get your canopy off the road immediately. If there is a possibility that you will land in or near trees, jettison your rucksack if it has been lowered. If the rucksack has not been lowered, it should remain attached. Leave your goggles and oxygen mask on, if used, for additional protection. Turn your canopy into the wind and attempt to land between the trees. Control your parachute until landing, and brake as needed to achieve a vertical descent through the trees. Assume a PLF position and rotate your forearms in front of your face for protection prior to entering the trees. Maintain this position until you stop. Be prepared to pass through the branches and make contact with the ground. If suspended, signal for assistance. A landing in wires should be avoided at all cost using proper canopy control. A downwind landing is preferred to a landing in wires. If, however, a wire landing is imminent, time permitting, throw away your ripcord and jettison your rucksack. Turn off oxygen if it is being used and disconnect your RSL. Attempt to fly parallel with and pass through the wires. Brake as needed to achieve vertical descent, and prepare for a PLF in case you pass through the wires and make contact with the ground. If you do make contact with the ground, immediately disconnect your RSL. If not already disconnected, and cut away. If you're suspended, remain motionless until the power has been shut off. Do not allow anyone to touch you, and do not cut away, as this may complete the circuit. In the event of an unintentional water landing, attempt to land as close as possible to shore. Jettison your oxygen mask and equipment if they are being worn. Unhook your RSL, unfasten the chest strap and waist strap, and turn the canopy into the wind. Then, brake to slow your airspeed. You should be prepared to perform a PLF as the water may be shallow. After entering the water, release your leg straps and swim free of the harness. Inflate your flotation device if available. If you're being dragged, cut away the main canopy. If you are trapped under the canopy, follow a seam to the edge. As you have seen throughout this program, emergencies can occur at any time during military freefall operations, before or during takeoff, during flight, in freefall, during canopy descent, or while landing. Emergencies require clear thinking, a quick reaction, and accurate decisions on your part. With the proper responses, the frequency and severity of emergencies can be reduced. You must be able to recognize emergency situations and to know how to react to each type of emergency you may encounter. The success of your next military freefall operation, as well as your own safety and the safety of your fellow parachutists, may depend on your ability to recognize and respond to an emergency situation.